A young teen watched as he sat atop a hill, watching over the largest battle of his times. Out of the two sides clashing, one side had a clear advantage. They had more artillery, they had more people, and they had more elephants. The other side was much weaker. It should have been an easy win for the stronger side. But everything changed when its leader, the stronger side's leader, got shot in the eye and he fell unconscious. This caused panic in the larger forces, so much so that the smaller force won. The teen named Jalaluddin Muhammad was the king of the smaller force, and on that day he had just won the second battle of Panipat, and with it the peacock throne of Delhi. He would later be given the epithet Akbar, or Great in Arabic. He was just a child of 13 when his father had died. Humayun, the second emperor of the Mughal Empire, who had lost most of his empire to Sher Shah Suri, he had to then spend 15 years of his reign outside of his empire in Persia to recover. He spent his time rebuilding his forces to take back his lands, and he would win the western half of his empire too. And then he would die by falling down a set of stairs. Not funny, dude. Someone just died. It will never not be funny. But this left the empire in a precarious situation. Jalaluddin, the newly crowned emperor, was just 13, and half of the empire was yet to still be won. So they appointed Behram Khan as the regent and the real leader of the empire. He led the Mughal army into the second battle of Panipat and won them Delhi. For the next 4 years, Behram Khan led the empire's armies as he regained everything that Humayun lost and conquered Gwalior too for the victory lap. But in those 4 years, Akbar had grown into a man and he decided to take power into his own hands. Behram Khan was then sent out to complete Hajj, where he was assassinated. Oh no, Akbar started to expand his empire, but unlike his predecessors, he wasn't interested in cruelty. In the first campaign with him as empire's sole regent, it was into the Malwa Plateau. His general Adam Khan was conducting great cruelty towards the conquered people. So Akbar left Delhi and marched all the way up to Adam Khan to have him punished for it. He threw him off the rooftop to have him be executed. He then declared that his conquests would try to avoid cruelty against the non-combatants. For the most part, he had continued the policies of his predecessors in terms of the tolerance towards non-Muslims in the first 2 years of his reign, which was to treat them as second-class citizens, but still citizens. But everything changed when he married a Rajput woman. The daughter of the Rajput king of Amer was offered to marry Akbar, and this created an alliance that stuck with him for his whole reign. Fun fact, her name was not Jodhabai. We generally don't know her real name, but Akbar gave her the name Maryam Urzamani, meaning Mary of our age. Wait, does that make Jahangir Jesus? Both their names starts with J, and that makes Akbar God. He did have delusions of grandeur where he started believing that he was God, or at least the Messiah sent by God, to the point that he declared himself as Mahdi and Kalki. Oh my god. Yup, that is what Akbar was like. Because of his wife, he started being more tolerant towards people who were not of his faith. He not only tolerated the building of temples, which started with Babur, but he also funded it. His court was lined with Hindus and Sikhs. Prime example of it being Birbal, his main vizier, and probably some guy you've heard of. When he built Fatehpur Sikri in Agra, it was at first only supposed to be for Sunni Muslims. But upon the insistence of his wife, it became open for all religions. 4 years into his reign, he would go to visit Guru Amar Das, the third Sikh Guru, and there he would sit with the common people to have langar in order to respect the Sikh custom. And because of that, he would get to talk to the Sikh Guru and learn from him. In return, the Sikh Guru asked him to get rid of jizya tax, and so he did. Damn, Akbar sounds awesome. But you have to understand that his rule had a very tick-tock quality to it. For every good he did, there was something much worse that came as a caveat. Talk. For one, he generally listened to his wife and respected her opinion. He even built temples for her within his palace, allowing her to stick with her religion. Tick. But he had 5,000 women in his harem. Talk. He avoided enslaving people that he conquered, and he tried to give the same treatment to everyone, regardless of whether they were of a different religion or not, or even if they were newly conquered subjects or they were old loyal subjects. Tick. But his cruelty in his conquest was not any less than his predecessors. When he tried to conquer Chittorgarh, his siege killed almost all combatants of the city, meaning almost their entire population of men in the fort, causing the women to commit Johar again. Talk. He was religiously very tolerant, and he liked to listen to the scholars of every religion and provide patronage to them. Tick. But then he thought himself to be a god because of it. Talk. He literally became a vegetarian and got rid of onion and garlic from his diet to impress his wife and the Jain monks of his empire. Tick. But he liked to hunt animals, all the while refusing to eat them. So he hunted them for fun alone. Talk. He would go out of his way to reform the bureaucracy of his empire. He made sure that there was a sort of a civil servant exam, making sure that only the worthy became part of the bureaucracy, turning the empire into a meritocracy in theory. So Akbar introduced UPSC, something like that. But honestly, only people who had been bureaucrats themselves could make it. Since according to European travelers, Akbar's Mughal Empire was deeply unequal. The nobility and bureaucracy lived fabulous wealthy lives, while the rest of everyone else lived in squalor. This is not a Chinese traveler, by the way. China being one of the most equal societies of the medieval times and early modern times. If they had called us unequal, well, that would have been fair. If the Central Asians like Babur had called us unequal as he had, that would also have been fair. But this was Europeans that said it. Europe, the place where things like the French Revolution happened, the place where the commoners were called peasants, the place where the common folks starved to death on the regular. If a person from a society like that calls the empire unequal, oh boy, was it unequal. When the Europeans arrived in Vijayanagar Empire, for example, they did not call it unequal, which means that it was within the European expectation of inequality. Ultimately, Akbar did a lot of good for a lot of people, but I'm not too sure if he did it out of the goodness of his heart. Some historians believe that he did it out of a political expediency because this was the best thing to do, which is a fair thing to do for a king. Another reason could be because he wanted to impress his wife Mariam, which is also fair. But my analysis is that he genuinely thought himself to be the Messiah. He genuinely thought himself better than the others. And he did everything good so that he would receive praise, so that his view of himself would be confirmed. Ultimately, we would never know what went on his mind, as he didn't write anything down himself because it is believed that he had dyslexia. He would die 50 years into his reign at the age of 63, surrounded by his family due to dysentery. Man died of loose motion. Hey, it was a serious condition back then, particularly for the older folks. But it is highly ironic that the man who thought himself to be God died out of such a mundane reason as dysentery. I mean, all Mughal emperors died out of very ironic deaths. But I think nothing tops this. After Akbar died, Salim or Jahangir took the throne next. Join me next time to see how the Mughal Empire was under him and his grandson Shah Jahan. See you next time.